Sorry I'm late, Chip. Oh, you won't believe it. No, seriously, you actually won't believe this. I rocked up and there was a line of people just waiting to punch me.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't really have a good punchline. Anyways,
Well, don't worry, because today's victims also had a line of people for them, but now they don't, because they're dead.
Gangster rap singer Tupac Shakur died tonight in a Las Vegas hospital. The controversial MTV award winner who sold millions of records was on life support for the last 6 days after he was shot up in a drive-by ambush.
Trouble-plagued rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25, just about a week after sustaining 4 bullet wounds last Saturday night in Las Vegas. Shakur spent the weekend in the hospital on a respirator in critical condition.
Anybody who had something to do with hip-hop and loved the music it was a sense of mourning for a long time.
You're gonna always be right with us. We know you're gonna live forever, because legends always do.
Tupac and Biggie.
Yep.
The deaths, the murders potentially. Well,
Well, it wasn't murders because they were definitely shot.
Yeah.
Also, The Fellas Mysteries is now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Starting with this episode, you people asked for it, we delivered. As always, let's solve this case.
Now, this particular case involves two nowadays very famous rappers. That's Tupac Shakur and Biggie, as he was known. Do you ever listen to either of their music?
I've listened to some of their music, of
Couple
course.
tunes.
Yeah, a couple of tunes there and there. I can't say I'm a huge fan.
But a lot of their music is considered quite timeless, some classics.
Absolutely.
And it was at a time where the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States had a big rivalry, and that is ultimately where a lot of the tension comes from in this particular case.
Yeah.
And because we have two different rappers, we're actually doing almost like two cases in one, just because a lot of people believe that these two murders were intertwined, and it got a little bit messy.
They're connected. The dots connect. So let's start off with Tupac Shakur. Now, he's born on June 16th, 1971, quite some time ago. He was actually born in East Harlem, but he started his music career in like California, okay?
The West Coast.
Yes. Anyway, he did get up to some stuff, if that's what you want to call it. Anyway, he was convicted of 3 counts of sexual assault, and he was actually sentenced to prison for an act of brutal violence against a helpless woman. And on October 12, 1995, he was released thanks to Suge Knight, who was the CEO of the record label Death Row Records. It's going to come into play later on. The bail was $1.4 million.
So, obviously, someone comes and says, "Hey, listen up, buddy. I'm going to pay you I'm going to pay your bail, which is $1.4 million." But it's never quite that simple. Obviously, he wanted a little something in return, and part of the deal was that Tupac would go ahead and release 3 songs under Suge Knight record label, Death Row.
Yep. And you know, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, because in the end, Tupac was murdered at the age of 25. Damn. That's 4 years younger than you, man.
Why am I 29 today? I was 31
you were born
last
20
one. On the other side, on the East Coast, we've got Biggie. Born on May 21st, 1972 in New York. Now, Biggie actually went to some prestigious high schools.
Ooh, little private school boy.
I don't know if it was private school, but it was considered a good high school.
Reminds me of a certain detective.
Definitely. But anyways, look, at 17 he dropped out, and he unfortunately got mixed up in some things he shouldn't have got mixed up in. He was actually arrested on a weapons charge, and then literally a couple years later, he got done for drug dealing. Particularly cocaine, in case anyone was curious. And then in 1991, he was released from jail, and he, following that, went and released his demo tape.
Ooh, we do love a little demo tape.
Unfortunately, Biggie also fell victim to a horrible crime, a murder, at the age of 24.
Ooh, 25 and 24.
That's
young,
8
man.
years younger than you.
No. Actually, not far off.
Tupac and Biggie. Now, believe it or not, they were actually mates at one point. They were friends, they got along, and a lot of the time Biggie would actually look at Tupac and ask him questions about the industry, ask him for help with certain things, and then not only that, but ask him particularly about management, like, yo, would you mind helping manage me, all this sort of stuff. But Tupac actually said no, stay with P. Diddy. Now, P. Diddy at the time was the CEO of an East Coast record label that went by the name Bad Boy Records.
I like the name.
Yeah, I like the name Bad Boy Records. It's got
Reminds me of myself. You know what I mean? No?
Anyways, he was literally quoted saying, nah, stay with Puff. He will make you a star. Now, Puff was also a nickname for P. Diddy, to those of you guys that were interesting. But he was not a fan of mixing business and pleasure. So when Biggie asked him, yo, would you help me out with managing and things like that, he said, nah, because you know what, mixing business, I agree with him. I don't think you should mix it. And that's why we're not actually friends. This is just business for us, you know?
Of course. So let's talk about how they actually went from friends to foes. Now, they were both scheduled to work on a project for Lil Sean. So Tupac has arrived at the recording studio. Biggie and Diddy are already upstairs. They're already there. So whilst Tupac's in the lobby, he actually gets gunned down and he gets shot 5 times. Pretty crazy, right? But this is not where the man falls. He actually does survive this incident.
Imagine surviving 5 gunshots,
I know. Complete 50 Cent vibes.
Would you not say, whoever the gunman is maybe not that skilled? You'd figure if you were taking that many shots at someone, you'd like to think you would get at least one fatal one, or maybe Tupac just got really lucky.
Yeah. Anyway, he actually believed that Biggie did have a role in this incident. He believed that Biggie was behind it in some way. And I've got a quote here, according to Vice, from Vice. Tupac said the crew looked surprised and guilty, but Diddy claimed they showed him nothing but love and concern. So when he's talking about the crew there, I'm assuming he means Biggie's crew.
Yeah.
Maybe they see him alive, they're surprised, oh
like,
shit.
You were supposed to be dead, bro.
You should be standing right now. But yeah, that was the beginning of Tupac believing that Biggie was out for him, I guess.
Yeah, and then there was just, obviously the East Coast and the West Coast already had, there was already a bit of a rivalry, but this just made things 10 times worse, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you can imagine, I'm not gonna lie, Chip, if I had suspicions that you'd sent someone out to shoot me 5 times in the lobby, I'm not gonna lie, I would be... I
would never do that to you, Cal. I would poison you with Valium.
Right, well, if I ever die of suspicious causes...
That was a red herring.
All right, we're going off topic here. A couple months after that, Biggie actually went and released a single called Who Shot Ya? Now, I'm sorry, but if you, I get the tensions are rising, but I don't know. He's either poking the bear here or he's really just showing that, look, this was me that set this whole thing up.
Yeah.
But, Tupac didn't leave that unanswered. He answered, boy, and he answered with his own hit single, which was called Hit 'Em Up.
Oh.
Right?
Hit 'Em Up, baby.
in that particular diss track, right, he said he slept with Biggie's wife.
You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife.
That is quite the claim.
That would piss me off.
I mean, if
would
I
piss
just
me
walk
off.
on the radio and a guy saying that he did my missus, and I wouldn't be too happy.
Exactly, but, is that as bad as, attempting to shoot someone 5 times?
No. Maybe he did shoot 5 times. Now, after the shooting, Tupac did, like I mentioned earlier, go to prison for those sexual assault charges.
Yeah.
Now, Tupac actually listened to the song Who Shot You in prison. Suge Knight comes to Tupac with that offer that we spoke about. I'll pay you a $1.4 million bail. You come out of prison and you make 3 songs for Death Row Records. After that, that's when the diss track came out.
Off the back of that, that's when the real feud started between Suge Knight and P. Diddy. Because essentially, Suge Knight has gone and bailed out P. Diddy and Biggie's biggest rival, if you will,
From
Tupac.
jail, yeah.
There was actually one concert where Suge Knight actually came out on stage on a concert, and he, I quote, said this. He said, "I'd like to tell Tupac to keep his guards up," and slating P. Diddy in his speech, right? The whole thing is pretty much just him telling, look, any new artists, make sure you come to Death Row Records, all this sort of thing. And he literally says, quote again here, any artist out there that wants to be an artist, stay a star, and won't have to worry about the executive producer trying to be in all the videos, all on the records, dancing, come to Death Row. There's actually a video of that as well.
I'd like to tell Tupac, keep his guards up, we ride with him. And one other thing I'd like to say, any artists out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, all on the record, dancing.
It's now time to talk about the death of Tupac Shakur, the crime that happened on September 7th, 1996. Now, it all happened at the MGM Grand Casino in Las Vegas.
I've stayed there.
Yeah, it's a nice place, a great place. They were actually attending a Mike Tyson boxing fight, which Suge Knight had invited Tupac to, and he left the event with him. Okay, now on the way out in the lobby of the casino, Tupac and his bodyguards get into a fight with a guy named Orlando Anderson. Now, he is a member of, a very notorious gang called the Crips.
Yeah, I wouldn't really want to mess with that gang. I'm sure there's a lot of people. I would argue that they are one of the most famous gangs of all time.
Yep.
And yeah, definitely had a real notoriety about them.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to mess with them.
No, not a chance. Following the scrap, Tupac and Suge Knight leave the event. They leave in Suge Knight's car. Suge Knight's driving. Tupac is a passenger. And Tupac's bodyguards are in the car following. They're actually on their way to a club. Tupac's about to perform there. It's like a charity thing. They're at the traffic lights.
The red light?
Yeah, a white Cadillac pulls up on the passenger side of the car, fires 4 shots. 4 of them hit Tupac. 1 of them grazes like the side of Suge Knight's head. Tupac's bodyguards, like I said, were driving right behind them, jumped out the car straight away, tried to help him, but Suge Knight actually just pulled a U-turn in the car. Maybe he was trying to escape or whatever, but it did make it impossible for the bodyguards to get to Tupac.
Yeah.
But eventually, Suge Knight somehow blown out his tires, so he had to stop anyway.
Now, after that, they obviously had the first officer on the scene, who goes by the name Chris Carroll.
Okay.
Now, this next bit, we put a little asterisk next to it because we're not entirely sure how truthful this is, but it is said to go a little bit like this. Carroll then reached into the car and obviously Tupac is sort of like falling out, completely covered in blood, and Carroll asked him, "Who shot you?" And Tupac then just took a breath and responded and said, "Fuck you," and went unconscious. So, I mean, that didn't really help. I mean, he might have not even seen the person, to be fair. But yeah, anyways.
Well, if he's involved in gangs and stuff, and I feel like he wasn't that fond of the police, maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe he has just been shot, but is he still going to snitch?
I don't know.
Guess he's not that kind of man.
After that, he was taken to a medical center, and he was put into a medically induced coma. And unfortunately, 6 days later, on September 13th, 1996, Tupac died from internal bleeding.
Damn. And the world lost an icon.
An artist, a gifted, a talented musician.
Absolutely. After the murder on the Sunday night, Suge Knight was actually released, and he said that he heard something but saw nothing. So, I guess...
that is a little bit sus to me. I mean, you've just had your passenger shot 4 times. You saw nothing. I can understand maybe he didn't see the guy that did it or the shot, but I mean, you do see your friend getting shot 4 times, right?
I mean, maybe they're talking about like he didn't see the guy. He's probably at a traffic light. Probably didn't even look at the car.
That's true, yeah.
And then next thing you know, 4 shots have come in. Your side of your head's been scraped. Car's probably driven off by the time you've even looked.
True.
So, the police also actually never arrested anyone in connection to this murder.
Now, a member of Tupac's entourage, who goes by the name Yaki Gaddafi, he was there and he claimed he could identify the assailant, right? But weirdly enough, that was never followed up on, and he was never questioned. Even stranger was that 2 months later, he was murdered.
Damn.
So, did they find out that he knew who did it?
Yeah.
And they were like, right, we got to get rid of him as well?
Silenced,
It's true.
Can't say nothing when you got when you're 6 feet under.
At this point, you're probably thinking, right, okay, well, the police seem to have done nothing here. Well, they actually came out and said that they gave this case the same treatment as any other homicide here. I mean, that just sounds like they don't do their job there at all, to be honest with you.
Sounds like they're fucking up a little bit, and they're just like, yeah, got to give it the same treatment as every other.
Yeah, and over there, it sounds like maybe this sort of thing happens quite regularly. They don't have the time, the resources to look into every murder. It was a bit out of control. I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
a lot of media attention as well. Hard case to handle, I bet.
They probably were like, oh, it's another gang-related death. We're not even going to bother looking into it. That's the vibe that I got from that.
6 months later, after the death of Tupac, we have the death of Biggie Smalls. March 9th, 1997. Now, after Tupac died, Biggie tried to, put an end to the beef. Obviously,
I mean, the guy's dead.
I guess
like,
it's kind of like
maybe
paying respects kind of thing, yeah. But anyway, we got a quote here from Biggie. We two individual people, we waged a coastal beef. One man against one man made a whole West Coast hate a whole East Coast and vice versa. And that really bugged me out. I've got to be the one to try and flip it because Pat can't be the one to try and squash it because he's gone. Well, you nailed that one.
Yeah.
He's definitely not here.
Can't argue with that. Biggie was attending something called the Soul Train Awards, right? And now there was an after party that he headed to, and there was loads of it. It was overcrowded. Too many people were there, so the fire department rocked up, shut it down, and said, right, everyone gotta go, get out. And around 1 a.m., he left that after party with P. Diddy. Biggie's car actually followed P. Diddy's when they'd left. But unfortunately, Biggie's car got stopped at some traffic lights, very similar to the Tupac situation. A black Chevy Impala pulled up on the driver's side and shot through that window and ended up killing Biggie. And he got shot 4 times. The same amount of times that Tupac shot. I'm not saying that it was planned,
Such a similar situation.
Yeah.
Traffic lights, car stops, boom. The rapper's the only person to die in this situation.
Yeah. And again, after being shot, everyone rushed him to the medical center, but unfortunately at 1:15, he was pronounced dead. Now, his autopsy was released 15 years later.
Yep.
And it was proven that the 4th bullet, the final bullet, was actually the fatal one. Now, I'm not too sure why the autopsy came out 15 years later, but maybe it was some sort of law, something like that.
Kind of close to making it as well. So if there was only 3 shots, we might still have the man to this day.
One bit of information that's quite interesting is that the driver was apparently a black male in a blue suit with a bow tie. Now, to me personally, Chip, that sounds like the outfit you would be wearing
100%.
to an award show.
100%. He probably came from the same pie.
That's what I'm thinking.
Very possible.
Was he told, right now, tonight, your aim is to kill Biggie, follow him round, when he leaves, you leave, and let's make this happen?
I could imagine that's the best way, You keep your eye on him at all times at the party. The second you see him leave, you go jump in your car, you stay behind, car hits the traffic lights, you pull up, pop,
yeah,
and you leave.
So there we have it. Those are the 2 deaths of some of the most iconic musicians of their time.
Yeah.
Now, we've got to talk a little bit about the theories. Both saw, when we were reading through this, learning and researching about this case, we both thought, wow, they are so similar. They both pull up to the traffic lights and they both get shot. Well, 4 times as well. There was just a lot of coincidences here, and not to mention the fact that they both had beef as well, and then both of their record labels had beef. It was just like, there's a lot of theories floating around, so we're gonna quickly run through those.
Okay, so we'll start off with our first theory, and this applies to the death of Tupac, and it comes from Greg Kading, who is a former LAPD detective. Now, he believes that Diddy was the man behind Tupac's death. He got a Crips gang member named Davis to confess that P. Diddy paid him $1 million to carry out the murder of Tupac and Suge Knight. Now, kind of makes sense in the fact that Tupac and Suge Knight were riding in the same car.
Yeah.
Suge Knight did kind of get clipped by a bullet, nothing crazy, but if 4 shots are getting fired,
you maybe were hoping to get both of them.
Yeah, you're not looking to avoid the guy in the passenger seat, really, are you?
Yeah, it's true. Not only that, but P. Diddy would, it would just make sense that he would want to get both of them. I mean, that way you get that entire record label just removed from the whole situation, and you also get Tupac removed
Yeah,
as well.
it's a double whammy for them. The situation. Now he said that Orlando Anderson, who is actually Davis's nephew, also a Crips member, was the man who pulled the trigger. And Davis, the man that admitted to being paid, recounts the night of Tupac's murder and says that he was in fact in the car. And it was later found out that he was facing up to 25 years in prison for other crimes. So maybe he kind of had
to talk.
Yeah,
he
had
wanted
to
to strike
talk
a deal
to get his years down.
But that also does it. It's one of those things. It's like, right, okay, so he knows that could be going away for 25 years here, and if he has no information, then he might not be able to get his sentence down. So what if he just chats complete wassa
100%,
right? And he just says, oh I got paid $1 million, by the way. Oh, do you mind just reducing that to 10 years for me now? Like, it's up in the air.
And also, Orlando Anderson was actually the man that we spoke about earlier that had the fight with Tupac and his bodyguards in the MGM Grand Casino lobby.
Right. So was it the plan all along, or was it like a heat of the moment thing? Mm-hmm. Did he just want to get revenge? It's like, we've just scrapped in the MGM Grand. I'm gonna go get him back. I'm gonna kill him. Or is it like, actually, the whole plan all along was for $1 million, I was supposed to kill him anyways, so.
Yeah, I mean, it works out. You can't kill him in the MGM Grand, you'll get spotted.
No way. P. Diddy obviously came out and said, this story is pure fiction and completely ridiculous. So, I mean, it's not like P. Diddy was ever gonna come out and gonna be like, yeah, he got a point, actually.
Well, actually, I'll tell you what, P. Diddy's former bodyguard does believe the allegations, and Biggie's mother also believes that P. Diddy and Suge Knight are responsible for his death. Yeah. Interesting, right?
Chuck Phillips, a former LA Times journalist.
Yes.
He's kind of on the same wave as the previous theory, but the main difference is instead of P. Diddy offering up the $1 million, he claims it was Biggie that did it. And the main reason for that is he's just provided more of a motive for it to be Biggie, and that motive being the feud that we'd spoken about. Obviously, Tupac had claimed to have porked Biggie's missus, and they'd just been going back and forth. It was very public. It was messy, and Biggie wanted rid of Tupac, right? And is that the reason why he only really cared about Tupac rather than Suge Knight? So is that the reason why only Tupac died? And he didn't actually really care about whether Suge Knight, because he didn't really care about the record label beef. He just wanted a guy that he'd been beefing, which was Tupac. He wanted him gone. Is that why? I don't know. But that is the theory of Chuck Phillips.
Could you imagine that happening today? Like artists are beefing, Katy Perry and Lily Allen, whatever. She just put a hit out on Katy Perry, like, I want it gone. I want that bitch gone.
Anyways, back to the theory, guys. Now he thinks that it was Orlando Anderson was the shooter of it. That's the guy that he had the scrap with in the MGM. So he still believes that as well. Now Orlando Anderson actually ended up dying in 1998 due to a shooting, and till then he had always denied the responsibility of Tupac's death, and he was never charged.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he says he was responsible, then he's gone to prison, so.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's just worth adding that. Sometimes people like to take credit when they...
Yeah, it's not like he admitted it on his deathbed, though, because he died in the shooting, so he died...
And the last thing we need is more deathbed confessions.
Yeah, maybe he's DB Cooper. We got a couple more theories. These ones are quite serious, actually. So I'll start off with, I've not heard this one before until today, but the Jewish Defense League, an extremist pro-Israel group. FBI apparently had some files on alleged death threats from the JDL aimed at Tupac, and they had been classified as a terrorist group. So obviously Tupac and JDL.
They were going head to head. Look, I'll be perfectly honest with you. This one's a reach, and I don't think we should give it much more airtime. Let's move on to theory 5.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people love this one. Seriously, this is a real one for the conspiracy theorists.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
This is the one that he is still alive and that he faked his death. Right? In 2015, some news outlets report that a man named David Myers claimed he helped Tupac fake his own death alongside Suge Knight, right? But the story came from a fairly untrustworthy place, so it wasn't a great place to believe this particular theory. Many actually believe that Tupac went to Cuba.
Yeah, it all just all adds up, doesn't it? Cuba, Tupac, gotta be true.
It's important to note that in this theory, there's a little bit more. Again, maybe far-fetched, but I told people like this theory, okay? So the rabbit hole goes a little bit deeper. Now, Tupac used to perform, sometimes used to perform under the name Machiavelli. And Machiavelli was named after an Italian war strategist, Niccolo Machiavelli, right? Now, this war strategist also faked his death. Okay, and when you swap the letters around in Machiavelli, it actually spells out, or it says, "I'm alive." Okay.
That's it. That's it. Oh, you dropped a K on the end.
You dropped a K.
That must have been the start of K.
Mate.
Oh,
was this the MSN era?
Wow, the research note says K dot, so.
K dot, yeah. I don't know, but anyway, look, that is one theory, and there's people that have gone deep down that rabbit hole, and they truly do believe it. So who knows? Maybe Tupac is chilling out in Cuba, vibes it.
Now, our final theory on the death of Tupac comes from a man called Russell Poole, who again is a former LAPD detective, and he believes the man behind all of this was Suge Knight.
Wow.
Yeah, because he had some motives. Now, apparently, he owed Tupac a lot of money.
How much money,
We're
Chip?
talking $3 million.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is actually backed up by Tupac's mother. She sued Death Row Records in 1997 for the mishandling of Tupac's funds. Now, Tupac was actually planning on leaving Death Row Records, which you can imagine would stir up a little bit of something, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a little murmur happening at that time, and what I mean by that was Tupac had recently just fired his lawyer, okay, and his lawyer was also Suge Knight's lawyer.
Yep.
This lawyer was also the one that sorted out the contract between the two. So obviously, if Tupac was planning on leaving Death Row Records, he would want to use a different lawyer. He wouldn't want to use Suge Knight's lawyer.
Oh yeah, of course.
Too much of a conflict of interest. So he'd already fired him, and that was only a week prior to when the shooting happened after the boxing fight.
Oh, that's a good timeline.
So
makes sense.
The timeline really works out there. But if you were planning on leaving it and you felt like someone had, he was owed $3 million, I have to think, would you still be going to boxing fights with the guy? Like, if you owed me $3 million and I was planning on leaving whatever you were doing and all that, and you said, yo, let's go to a boxing fight, I'm not quite sure I would go with you because I want my $3 million.
It could be a case of Tupac's trying to keep that relationship healthy because he does want to get his $3 million, or, he hasn't really told Suge Knight he's planning on suing him yet. Could be one of those. Anyway, so moving on with this theory, apparently after the incident in the casino lobby, Suge Knight...
scrap.
After the scrap, the scrap. Suge Knight actually made a phone call whilst everyone was kind of fleeing the scene.
Okay.
Now,
so with all the busy commotion going on, he wheeled off to a corner, pulled up his blower, and got on the phone.
Exactly. Now, also, he actually insisted that Tupac ride in his car. So, Tupac could have got in any car, could have gone with his bodyguards, actually, that were in the car behind. Instead, Suge Knight said, no, ride in my car. He insisted on it.
Russell Poole, the detective, also claims that, remember that bullet graze that Mr. Knight claimed to have got from the shooting, right? Because he obviously got away really lucky, but he did say he had a graze. Now, he was saying there was no hospital records of this graze. There was none of that. But that sort of contradicts what... Do you remember Chris Carroll, the guy, the first officer on the scene? He was saying that his head was actually gushing with blood. There was a lot of blood. So unless there was some sort of corruption going on in the police, which who knows, back then maybe, but I just... it's weird that the hospital would have no records of something like that.
I feel like in that situation, Suge Knight probably wouldn't want to go to hospital. He's just been involved in a shooting. He's connected with gang members and gangs.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of man that's going to be like, yep, take me to the hospital, peeps, get me in there? Probably just going to have to firm it.
Maybe.
Especially if it was only a graze, and he's probably like, yeah, I'm actually cool. Bit of blood, whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, the guy said he was gushing with blood. I don't know. I mean, it could just be really as simple as the hospital just didn't log it.
Yeah, it could be.
So those are our Tupac theories. That's what we've got. We're going to move on to Biggie's in a second, but What way are you leaning so far? Just quickly.
I don't like the idea of Suge Knight being behind it because he was in the car and he could have literally died himself. If you were going to try and get someone killed, you probably don't want to be in the car with them.
Yes.
You could have easily made Tupac ride with the bodyguards after leaving the casino. He insisted, apparently, that he ride with him.
Yeah.
Doesn't add up.
I agree.
Doesn't add up.
I just don't think you would risk being in a car with someone and like a potential stray bullet unless you've literally got one of the best shooters in America to do the job. I just think it's so risky to do it.
He could have died with Tupac there and then, so that kind of doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the P. Diddy one makes a lot more sense.
It does.
Rival record label.
Biggie or P.
East
Diddy,
Coast,
I
West
feel
Coast.
like, but P. Diddy has. There's a lot. I feel. Yeah, I just have a feeling you're right. I don't know if would you kill someone over the rap beef. I don't know, but is this like business? More P. Diddy's more of like a business dealing.
Sounds like something that could have happened anyway, because obviously it did happen.
I'm leaning that way. Anyways, let's talk about Biggie's theories.
Yes. Let's talk about the thirst theory in Biggie's death. Now, a week after Biggie died, he actually was nominated for 3 Grammy Awards on his album Life After Death. You know, quite a title considering the situation. The leading investigator on the case was Stephen Katz, and it then did in fact turn into Russell Poole, who we were just talking about, who was involved.
He's on this case
Tupac.
now.
He is on this case. Now, Russell Poole's theory was that Suge Knight was working alongside corrupt LAPD cops and killed Biggie Smalls. This was in retaliation to the murder of Tupac, who many believe that was killed by Biggie or P. Diddy. Yeah. So this is a complete revenge situation. That's what Russell Poole believes. Now, Poole did in fact discover that some of the LAPD cops were on the Death Row Records payroll. Dodgy business, right?
Yes.
Working as security guards. Now, there was an officer called David Mack. Now, David Mack was there on the night of the party when Biggie Smalls was killed, and he also owned a black Chevy Impala.
Oh boy, it's not looking good, I'll tell you that. He was also acquainted, right, with an alleged hitman named Amir Muhammad, who matches the description of the shooter.
Okay.
Right? Now, obviously, when Poole goes and be like, yo, have a look at this guy, he goes to his bosses, look what I've just found out. Look at all this information. There's something's got to be happening. His superiors simply said, we're not going that way. They didn't want to go down the corrupt police officer route.
Sounds like they knew something was going on within their department.
They wanted to turn a blind eye to this.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows how many people were on this payroll, but Russell Poole, the guy on the case at the time, had found a few. Maybe if he kept digging, he would have found loads of corruption, and for that reason he was told, look, we ain't going down that path.
Yeah, I mean, well, if that came out to the media, the
massive.
police chief wouldn't have that job for too much longer.
For sure. Some bonus information on Officer Mack is that in December 1997, he was actually arrested for robbing a bank of over $700,000.
Damn.
Okay, I mean, he's gone from being an officer to robbing a bank. Fair enough.
How does that come about? Like, what?
Now, the authorities went and searched his crib. They went and checked it out. And guess what they found there, Chip? They found a shrine of Tupac in his house. God. Okay? He also drove that black Chevy Impala that we spoke about. And they also found Gecko ammunition, which is a brand of ammunition, the same brand ammunition that was used to kill Biggie. Now, it has to be said that that brand of ammunition is quite popular and, it's not necessarily super niche, but there's quite a few things lining up here, Chip. I'll be honest.
Lining up, yeah. We actually have a quote from a prison informant here called Mario Hammonds, and he claimed that Suge Knight said, "My people handled the business. They took care of him. We just missed Diddy."
Boy, I mean,
can you trust him? He's a prison informant. Is he just trying to get his years off? Like,
I don't know.
But it does sound like the theory that, I'll be honest, I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. In 2002, Biggie's mum filed for wrongful death lawsuit. So this led to a bunch of new investigations going on around the whole case, right? And they called forward a witness who goes by the name Eugene Deal. Now, he was P. Diddy's bodyguard, or former bodyguard, obviously. And he said that there was a weird guy sort of lurking around the party, right? Around the exit of the party.
Yeah.
So he said, right, okay, we're gonna show you a lineup of photographs. And I want you to pick out which guy looks most like that weird guy that was lurking around looking a bit suspicious. And who did they pick out? Amir Muhammad, the hitman that we'd mentioned earlier that was supposedly had a close ties with the officer and Suge Knight.
Yeah, and he was not even just looking outside the party, but even actually walked towards the crime scene. He was around the crime scene.
Yeah.
So that kind of adds up nicely.
Is it a case of, right, so we obviously have the officer Mac, he owned the black Chevy Impala. Was it him driving it and the hitman doing the shooting? Or did he give the hitman his car and he did both jobs? How would it work? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of works because the original lead investigator on the case, we said earlier, Stephen Katz, he actually failed to forensically test the black Chevy Impala, which belonged to David Mack. Also,
that would be the first thing you do, right? So this has to be such an obvious. It's not like you've just, I forgot.
Yeah.
No, you deliberately don't do it on purpose.
You don't want to test your colleague's car because maybe he's involved.
Yeah.
Also, never interviewed Amir Mohammed, and forgot to turn over 200 pages of documents when transferring the case over to Russell Poole.
Yeah. I mean,
mental.
Yeah, there's something going on. Next theory, Chip.
Yep.
Guess what? Remember Davies?
Yes.
Orlando's
He's
uncle?
one of the leaders of the Crip gang.
Yeah, so he was up there, some say like he called quite a few of the shots in the gang.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Well, he was at both locations for both murders. Ooh. Okay, now Davis had some drug-related charges as well, and police used those charges to get him to talk on the Tupac and Biggie cases, really.
Give him the opportunity to get his ears down. Get some of the charges dropped, maybe.
Exactly. Now, on July the 2nd in 2018, he actually confessed. He came out and said, I played a role in the killing of Tupac, but he's only done that because he was dying of cancer. It's another deathbed confession. When will we get away from these? Right? So he literally claimed that P. Diddy wanted Tupac dead for $1 million. So there we go. We're bringing back in that theory that he wanted him dead for $1 million.
Yep. So he's paid $1 million for these guys to take out Tupac.
Exactly. And that it was Orlando and two of his other friends drove out to meet Davis in Las Vegas in a white Cadillac.
Yep.
Which was
the vehicle.
The car that pulled up. Exactly. He said that once Orlando was attacked by Tupac in the lobby, he wanted to retaliate. According to him, Orlando shot Tupac.
So it's like what you said earlier. It was a retaliation, but they were there to do the job anyway.
Yeah.
Bit of a coincidence that they just bumped into each other in the lobby, though.
And they just wanted to retaliate.
There's a lot of people in Vegas.
For $1 million, I think it would be a lot more planned. It would be a lot more. I don't know. He knows he's dying, and maybe he thought, look, if I say this, I might go down in history as
possibly.
I don't know.
Bit of attention and fame.
Mate, you know what? You know my thoughts on the deathbed confessions. I'm not a big fan. So there it is. Those are the theories. Chip, what do you think? Give me yours for the Tupac death and the Biggie death. What do you think?
I think for both rappers, it was a case of the East Coast, West Coast thing. I think Diddy was responsible for the death of Tupac, and then the response was Suge Knight was like, I'm not having this. You killed my star rapper, probably friend, whatever he wants to say. He's come back and been like, right, well now I'm gonna get Biggie Smalls killed in the exact same way.
Okay, so I believe slightly different.
Okay, what have you got?
I believe this, right? This is mine. I think that they got into the scrap. So this is for Tupac. I think that they got into a scrap in the casino, and it was really just a case of Orlando retaliating. He's pissed off.
Yep.
He's maybe he got banged up in there. It made him look bad.
Yep.
Made the gang look bad. And so just in a fit of rage, jumps in the white Cadillac, drives, shoots, kills him. Right. But Suge Knight takes that as, you know what? No, this was a hit. This was a hit. There's no way this guy just did this for nothing. This is a hit. So he's now lost, like you said, someone so important to Death Row Records.
Yep.
He now goes, nah, well, if Tupac's dead, there's no way that Biggie's gonna make this one out alive. And I do think that Suge Knight got the officer and the hitman to do the job on Biggie Smalls. Those are my two.
You'd think, though, in the industry that because it was like 6 months later, that somebody would have said to Suge Knight, look, it actually wasn't Diddy. Or if it was Diddy.
But even then, he's not going to go, oh, right, oh, shit, I fucked
but
it.
like, if it really wasn't him, there wouldn't be people saying it was him, right? Unless he just made that assumption. Or
it's a tough one.
They must be they're obviously in the same circle because, they're involved with all these rappers and record labels. Are people just being like, yo, it was Diddy, people are speaking, it was Diddy paid.
I mean, there's people that come out and do say that. They literally do. They say that they're like, yo, I'm like 99% sure it was Diddy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with all these things, there's always the chat that happens within the industry and stuff that we'll never hear. So it's an interesting one.
Even Eminem said that it was Diddy in a song that only came out a few years ago, and he came out later and said it was just a joke. But maybe he realized, I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm gonna get done
exactly.
up.
Right, well, you're probably wondering, yo, Cal, what's the latest on these guys? Well, unfortunately for Knight, he declared bankruptcy in 2008. He crashed his car into two men. One was actually Terry Carter, who was the co-founder of a record label called Heavyweight Records. So, I've seen the video of that, by the way. It is it's quite intentional. Okay, to put it lightly. Now, he killed Terry, and the second person suffered injuries from head to toe. Like, it was not pretty at all. So right now, Suge Knight is actually spending 28 years in prison, 22 for voluntary manslaughter charges, and the other 6 are for third strike violations. So
he just doesn't stop.
Mate, look, he's in there for a while. He's at a correctional facility in San Diego and admitted on October 23rd, 2018. He was admitted on October 23rd, 2018, but he is eligible for parole in October 2037.
Well.
So it's a little while away. You're wondering, P. Diddy, what's P. Diddy up to?
Well, he's still living his life.
He's actually, bottles.
He's 51 years and he's doing well. Maybe he did it, maybe he didn't, but either way, the man is living his life.
He's
and
living
he is
it
free.
up. Tupac's mother.
She has started the Tupac Shakur Foundation, which is focused on youth arts. And in May 2016, she actually went into cardiac arrest and died when she was 69 years old. Her sister is also an activist who was captured speaking at the George Floyd protest during the summer of 2020.
So that's what we got here, guys. We want to know your thoughts on the theories. What do you think happened? What information do you believe to be the most relevant? Do let us know. And remember, guys, we are now out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of the streaming services. Go ahead and check it out. Please make sure you hit like the follow, subscribe to our podcast over on there. Because you know what, maybe you want to listen to this on audio on your way to work.
Yeah.
Or maybe just you're lying in bed and you don't want to look at these ugly faces and you just want to hear Chip's beautiful, soothing voice. Well, you can do that now. So until next time, guys, we will see you guys on the next episode.
Say something. Chupapi Manyo. Huh? What does Chupapi Manyo mean?